There's been all sorts of back and forth about the traditional story of the canonization of the Quran. Many of the viewers may know that that's attributed to the third caliph, Uthman, somewhere around the middle of his service or reign as caliph. And maybe I should let you pick up the story from there. I mean, could you give us maybe very briefly, how does it shake down that Uthman is the one who canonizes the Quran?
Yeah, sure. That's so the sort of the main report that discusses the canonization of the Quran by the third caliph Uthman actually goes back to Ibn Shihab az-Zuhri. So Harold Motsky has a nice paper on this where he kind of revisits all the main accounts of the canonization, and he sort of identifies az-Zuhri as the common link, who reports it on the authority of Anas. So he's a companion. And the basic idea is that, due to disagreements that occurred in the battlefield between different factions about the nature of the Quran or the precise wording of it, etc., essentially Uthman ordered that a project be done where the Quran was standardized, so that the text of the Quran is to be standardized, and then copies of the standard text were made and then distributed to the different amsar, or the different cities. Now, this is sort of a very general framework and a very general narrative, and of course there are different reports that might contain different details, and often those details are somewhat contradictory. But the very interesting thing, of course, is sort of the date of the canonization of the text has been a subject of controversy in Western scholarship. Some people kind of place the closure of let's say the Rasm, the written text of the Quran later, perhaps at the time of Abd al-Malik. And I think maybe a lot earlier people considered it to be potentially even later than that. But then I think recent scholarship has kind of dismissed that for various reasons. But the questions, go ahead.
Sorry, you anticipated that it was about to cut in. Yeah, I just wanted to define that word rasm because it came up. You mentioned it there, and just thinking of people who may not be familiar with that. So, at the risk of getting too simple here, but the Quran is written in Arabic. Mm-hmm. And tell me if I say something stupid or wrong here. The Quran is written in Arabic, and Arabic is generally at an early stage written in a sort of shorthand, which allows for the representation of a basic text known as the rasm. So in transliterated letters, R-A-S-M. And and that's sort of what's at stake in this conversation, I think, is the rasm. Now, in order to read the rasm, you need to either know by context or oral transmission what is intended by that shorthand text, or you need to have someone complete that rasm for you to make a full text, which has, and you've alluded to this in an answer to a different question, has the dots and the vowel markings, the vocalization, right? So does that sound basically right? How did I do?
No, you did great, exactly. So the Arabic script lacks short vowels. It also is defective in the sense that word internal alif is not represented. So the word malik and malik would be mim, lam, kaf, and you wouldn't be able to distinguish them in the early script. So
Malik being possessor, Malik being king.
Mm-hmm.
Those two different words. Yeah. So, and then can I take you back a step further, or step not further, but the other way, mm-hmm. backwards, because you alluded to the project of Uthman, who by tradition reigns in Miladi, or common era dates from 644 to 656. Mm-hmm. But there you mentioned that he formed a text, but also he got rid of other texts. So there were texts that were around, right? According to the traditional narrative, mm-hmm. which you've mentioned, according to Motsky's research, the earliest sort of attestation of it is with az-Zuhri. So yeah, could you speak a little bit about that? Like why were there texts around, or what was the nature of those texts and what happened to them? I mean, at least according to the traditional account, we don't have to say like what really happened.
So that's a great question. So essentially the general idea, according to the general traditional narrative, although narrative in the singular is a bit misleading, there are always sort of details that differ, but the general idea is different companions had learned slightly different renditions of the Quranic text from the Prophet. And they started teaching, as the Muslim conquest took place and, the empire expanded, different companions settled down in different cities. So, for example, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud settled down in Kufa. And then we had Abu Darda, he settled down in Syria. And so on, and they started teaching their versions or their specific renditions of the Quranic text, and it seems, according to this narrative, that though the differences between those different codices, companion codices, if you will, were sufficient enough to cause a lot of internal dispute and strife. And the idea behind the Uthmanic project is to unify the empire and unify people on a single text, which he commissioned Zayd ibn Thabit to lead. And so the idea was, let's produce a unified text and let's send this text out to the different parts of the empire and order basically everyone else who has another copy that follows a different tradition to sort of destroy it or get rid of it in some way.